Have you ever found yourself catastrophizing over a minor setback, assuming the worst about a situation without real evidence, or obsessing over one tiny mistake in an otherwise perfect situation? We all have negative thoughts, and most of the time, they are automatic. Negative automatic thoughts can generate emotions such as anxiety, sadness, frustration, guilt, anger, or unworthiness. Negative automatic thoughts can fall into a number of basic thinking styles that distort reality. In cognitive behavioral therapy, these thinking styles are called cognitive biases. Distorted thinking involves inaccurate or exaggerated thinking and viewing things in terms of absolutes with no gray areas. The problem is that once you start making thinking errors, you tend to stick with them. They become assumptions and beliefs that are retained unless an effort is made to identify and change them. Recognizing our distorted thinking patterns is a powerful tool and the first step in improving our mental health and overall well-being. Psychologists have identified a number of thinking errors that most people make some of the time, and some people make all of the time. Number 1, generalizing the specific. You generalize the specific when you come to a general conclusion based on a single incident or piece of evidence. You use words such as always and never, nobody and everyone to make an all-embracing rule about a specific situation. If you make a mistake, you tell yourself that you are hopeless. If you get rejected by one person, you tell yourself that nobody will ever love you and you'll be alone forever. If you have one minor car accident, you tell yourself you are a bad driver. You yell at your kids once, and you tell yourself you are a bad parent. You have one failed recipe, and you tell yourself you cannot cook. Whenever you make such generalizations about yourself or your behavior, be sure to come up with an alternative thought that is specific, such as, I am a good parent. In that difficult situation with my kids, I was very calm and understanding. I only yelled today because I was very tired. Number 2, mind reading. This is one of the most common thinking errors people make when their self-esteem is low. Without other people saying so, or having any objective evidence, you feel you know what they are thinking and why they act the way they do. In particular, you think you can guess how people are feeling towards you. This is fatal to self-esteem because you believe that others agree with your negative opinions of yourself. Yet you are jumping to conclusions without any real evidence, and for some reason, you only seem to have the gift of mind reading negative views. You never seem to develop the gift of mind reading positive thoughts. Here are some examples of such thoughts. He doesn't think I'm interesting. I'm sure they don't want me in their group. I can tell she doesn't like me. My colleagues think I'm not doing a good job. They think my suggestion was stupid. Whenever you have such thoughts, stop and ask yourself if you can truly read people's minds, or if your interpretation is based on unfounded assumptions. Number 3, magnification and filtering. You take the negative details from a situation and then magnify them while at the same time filtering out all of the positive aspects. You focus on the one thing that went badly in an otherwise successful endeavor. This is basically a selective attention to negatives. You dismiss all of your achievements and focus on the one thing that you are not so good at. Here are a couple of examples. You make a small mistake at work during a presentation. Then you think, I totally messed up that presentation. Everyone must think I'm incompetent. The rational thought would be to recognize that making a mistake does not define your entire performance or worth at work. Most likely, colleagues understand that mistakes happen and won't judge you harshly for one error. Or you dress up beautifully for an event, and everyone pays you the well-deserved compliment of saying how nice you look. However, a friend mentions that the hem is not quite straight at the back of your dress. You now feel that you no longer look lovely and that the evening will be spoiled while you worry about this hem. The fact that you look stunning apart from this passes you by. Challenging this cognitive distortion involves acknowledging the strengths of the event and integrating the positive feedback without overly emphasizing the one negative aspect. Number 4, polarized thinking, sometimes called all or nothing thinking. You think of people, situations, or events in extremes such as good or bad. You are seeing situations in extreme all-or-nothing terms without considering the nuances or middle ground. The problem is that you usually find yourself at the negative end of your polarized extremes. So if you cannot be all good, you must be all bad. If you're not totally successful, you're a complete failure. For instance, as a student, you receive a B on an exam. You think, I'm a complete failure because I didn't get an A. I'll never succeed in school. It's important to acknowledge strengths and areas for improvement without overly focusing on perfection. Or you're trying to lose weight, have been on a diet for a couple of weeks and made good progress. You then have one day of indulgence and eat a dessert. You think, I've ruined my diet completely by eating this dessert. I can't do this, so I might as well completely quit. The rational response would be to understand that occasional indulgences are normal and to not negate the progress you've made. Number 5, catastrophizing. You expect disaster. You believe that things will almost certainly go wrong if they possibly can, and that if they do, you will not be able to cope. Not only do you overestimate the likelihood of calamity, but you multiply it by your perceived idea of the catastrophic consequences. Whenever you notice or hear about the problem, you start on what-ifs, and then decide that if this terrible thing did happen to you, you would not be able to handle it. You notice a minor ache in your chest while exercising. You immediately start imagining the worst-case scenario, convincing yourself of the likelihood of a severe medical issue, like a heart attack. This leads to excessive worry and fear, disregarding more likely explanations for the chest discomfort. Or, you make a small error on a report at work. You catastrophize the impact of a minor mistake, envisioning the worst-case outcome, losing your job, and feeling overwhelmed by the perceived consequences. You imagine not being able to find another job, pay your bills, and start thinking about homelessness. The rational approach would be acknowledging alternative explanations or possibilities, putting the situation into perspective, and considering the likelihood of extreme outcomes, and emphasizing constructive actions and problem-solving strategies rather than succumbing to excessive worry or fear. Number 6, personalization. This involves thinking that everything people do or say is some kind of a reaction to you. You find yourself becoming unnecessarily defensive and possibly even causing ill feelings by taking someone's passing remark as personal criticism. Perhaps your partner mentions that your home is looking a little untidy. You will immediately read this comment as a criticism of your housekeeping skills. At work, during a department meeting, someone mentions that your team hasn't achieved its targets this month. You instantly decide that this comment is really directed at you personally and that everyone thinks you're falling short. The rational thought would be to acknowledge that your team has multiple members and there is some other explanation for not reaching the target. Number 7, blaming. This is the opposite of personalization. You hold other people, organizations, or even the universe responsible for your problems. This cognitive distortion involves attributing problems only to external factors or other individuals, thereby avoiding personal accountability in addressing challenges. This mindset can perpetuate a sense of victimhood and stop problem-solving and self-improvement efforts. For instance, you're late for a very important meeting at work. You blame the traffic, the city planners, other drivers, and the company for choosing an office space far away from your neighborhood. This pattern of thinking gives you a sense of helplessness and resentment. The rational shift would be to take control and realize you can leave early or plan for an alternative route. Number 8, self-blame. In this case, instead of feeling a victim, you feel responsible for the pain and happiness of everyone around you. You tend to overly criticize yourself and attribute problems to your own actions or perceived failures, even when other factors may be involved. This cognitive distortion can impact mental health and well-being by creating unrealistic expectations and self-criticism. If your firm loses an important client, you will find a way to believe that something you did cause this. If your daughter receives a rejection letter from her top choice college, you think it's your fault and feel responsible for not doing enough to support her during the application process. Number 9, rigid thinking. You feel resentful, because you think you know what's right, but other people won't agree with you. You continually attempt to prove that your opinions and actions are correct. You expect other people to change their views and actions if you pressure them enough. You try to change people in this way when you believe your hopes for happiness depend entirely on them behaving differently. This can take two forms. I can't understand why people don't see things my way. There must be something wrong with me. Or, I can't understand why people don't see things my way. There must be something wrong with them. Recognizing and challenging rigid thinking involves fostering openness to diverse perspectives and respecting differing opinions without feeling threatened or invalidated. You might identify with some or many of the described distorted patterns of thinking. Don't be alarmed because these are common types of cognitive biases. We all tend to think like this to some extent, especially when we are in a debilitated state of mind. While it can be hard to discover that much of your thinking is biased by negative distortions, acknowledging this is the first step to change. Now you can become more aware of them and knock them on the head quite easily. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Keep learning, keep improving, and I'll catch you in the next video.